As most of us are in lockdown at home, we are left to wonder what a post-COVID world might look like. There's a lot unknown about how the world will transform after we get the situation under control. But it is extremely unlikely that things will just go back to exactly the way they were before. This leaves a wide space open for discussion. I am Garima, and joining me on the dais today is David Reid. He's the Chief Marketing Officer and the Chief Technology Officer at NOV. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So first of all, many congratulations for your new role. And that brings me to my first question that we would love to know about your journey with NOV. The last time we met, you said it's been almost 27 years with NOV. How has it been for you? And what are the milestones you're particularly proud of? And what are you looking forward to?
Well, I came in the middle of a downturn, so I'm used to what we're facing now. I don't know if I'm used to it recently, but at least I've experienced harder times, and also I had a weird enjoyment of what that meant for the business, the pressure on the business, the focus, almost desperate. You have to find ways to make money, how to survive, how to bring value. So in the early days, it was quite enjoyable, even though it was tense because everyone was nervous, just like people feel now. We don't know if we're going to make it. We don't know. Some people lose their jobs. It's very sad. All of that was happening when I first came in the business, and it just made you more focused and more driven to be valuable. And so I tried to learn as fast as I could, and I was originally brought into a repair shop, and so we had these giant machines from offshore, and they were fascinating. And so I was just always trying to learn more about it. My job, we had an office next to us that was used for training, so I could go and study, and I'd just go try and learn as much as I could about everything I could inside of the drilling process. And so no, it was very good, and it was a really great company. So they had great leadership at that time when I arrived, and I was just impressed with their vision when times were tough. They had a good vision and believed in technology, believed that technology was going to be the answer. And luckily, they were small enough, too, that you would meet the top of the company in a little workshop. You would still get to meet the chairman and the CEO. And all of that made me feel like this was a great place to be. And it just had so much hope and vision that I was like, okay, I can go with this. That there's at least a vision of better days. And at the time, we never thought there would be better days. It was so unimaginable because it was going so long and so hard in a downturn. And I got to see some of those days. There used to be stories you would hear. They'd say, talk about the 80s, how things were so amazing. And then it was all horrible. And so you'd think, will that ever happen again? And you just assume, no, that's not coming back. But it's a very cyclical business. And so you can really count on that cycles are going to come and go. And you just got to understand the cycles, where you are and how to behave inside that cycle. So it's been a really, really good journey for me.
That's really interesting, sir. And talking about COVID-19 in particular, how do you see this crisis changing the oil and gas industry?
I'm going to have to move for light here. See the trick I did? COVID-19, it's quite a shocker what it's done to our society. How it's taken everything down. So that will be something we don't know. We don't know how it's going to climb out and what that's going to look like. But there are things we do know. There are technologies that we're waiting for this moment. We've been right on the edge of really telecommuting being the most obvious one. Everyone assuming you have to always be together. And I think that's going to be a change for all of us. We're going to start to understand it better, because what everyone assumed was, well, if someone's at home, they're probably watching television. They're probably doing something that needs to happen around the home. And the truth is that people are wired to either be very industrious or not. And usually the people in the middle of a high performing business are industrious, and so they've all learned that they didn't bring work home. Their home became work, and suddenly it invaded like crazy, and people are overworking. We actually have more problems with people working too hard. So the problems they had before when they were going to work, that they maybe weren't connecting well with their family, they're still not connecting well with their family. So there's things to work through for people who are workaholics, have taken work and made it too integral a part of their life. And so there's a balance there. But at the same time, there's a learning that we can do meetings. We don't have to be everywhere.
Right.
And we probably were wasting a lot of time and money, always trying to be everywhere. And so there's going to be a balance. I'm in lots of conversations about virtual conferences, and the virtual conference will be something of the future. But people will still want to meet each other. There's nothing that when I'm back in my office today. I have 3 offices, so I'm back in one of them. With my new job, I have a R&D facility up in Navasota, which is in the countryside here, and so I've been going there. But the physical going somewhere is healthy. The separation is healthy of home and work. Having all your work at home is not that healthy. So working at home is healthy. So it's a balance. You want to be working at home, not be doing all your work at home. You don't want to isolate. But you can use these tools. So the tools will change a lot. A lot of people will become people who were resistant. Are going to be a lot less resistant now, and slowly but surely, everyone's turning their cameras on when they are on calls. Which there is one part of our business I know that they all don't put their camera on. So I'll go, okay, I'll phone in and turn mine off, because it's just weird when you're the only one. But with my own teams or any group that I'm pulling together, I'm always pushing people, because for me, I read body language all the time as part of my interaction with people, and it's very strange to not see someone. So we try and at least let people turn up in their pajamas, and see them at our team meetings, and just be honest of where we are and talk openly about what that is. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
But I think a lot's changed. A lot of people are learning about themselves. I think that's a big change. There's a lot of reflection that hasn't been happening in life, that is happening now. So people are having to deal with their life and who they are and what they do. So that's one thing people aren't really realizing, but they're having deeper thoughts about, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I happy? Am I doing a good job with my family or at home? Or, so those questions are all being dealt with. And then technology is going to integrate even more into our lives. But I hope people have the right restraint, because there's been a lack of restraint with technology, and like all things, healthy boundaries are good. And so that's one thing I'm hoping most people come through this learning. I'm not too worried about the use of technology. We will use more technology, but healthy boundaries would be my favorite win from all of this.
That's a very interesting take, sir. Also, in one of your interviews, I heard you mentioning that this period that we have before us, this is a gift of time. And you articulated it really well, that, we should make the most of this time. And as you said, some of us are connecting with ourselves and our family members. But yes, not everyone is happy. And, maybe it's to each his own. That is how it is. But somewhere down the line, there is a fine balance we can all, work towards. So
I think so. I think in teaching leaders over the years that I've been with NOV, as I moved into leadership, I started to teach mostly because no one taught leadership. So I started trying to do it more. But when you really work with good leaders, teaching them healthy balance in their life, because the happier a leader is, turns out the happier their people are. The more in tune they are with the things they do that are unhealthy, then they don't create healthy environments. And health is mental health, it's physical health, it's everything in your being, so that you can actually make the most of this life. And work is often misunderstood. We have that desperate, we need to work to eat, and so it doesn't have to be something we enjoy. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be that pleasant. It just needs to feed us. It needs to house us. But really, it is a gift. The work is people often think in terms of, I have a job to get done, I will get someone to do that job. And that's how work is. But if you think I am going to be allowed to influence than others, how am I going to do that? Oh, here is a job that we need to do. I will use that to grow a person rather than using a person to get a job done. And so then you think differently about how people do work, what is good for them and their growth. And then what is, I think everyone has a superpower, everyone has a thing that they're uniquely good at. And so finding that with people when you're a manager or a leader, having the team that you have and saying, okay, what is the thing that really makes them do amazing work that they think is normal, but it's actually quite special and unique to them. It always sounds a bit too, perfect a world that surely, everyone has this, no, we just got to get work done. That's the important thing. Let's make sure everyone does their job. But if you learn to back off in life, you learn to understand yourself first. You do that work of how am I doing at home? Because your home life will be a deeper reflection on what's going on at work. And then you learn, okay, well, now my influence of others. So it's kind of like starts with yourself, starts to move out in circles around you. And so it starts with, okay, the people at home, how do I affect them? How am I doing? How are they doing? How are the people at work doing? How are the people I influence? How are the people they influence? And all of that comes from your work on yourself and how well you're doing. So that it's a really great season for that. And for good leaders to start to realize that caring for people and caring about people, sometimes more than they care for themselves, is really your job. And when you get that right, people do great work and you succeed. People do amazing things. But if you have a good vision, it's really not enough if you're not aware of people. And you don't build teams that are more to do with making people alive and making them do the amazing things they can do. And then you'll be surprised what happens, because you stop. The limit of a bad leader is they just get people to do what they want them to do. And it limits people to your strength, because everyone will do the things you think are right. But then if you start to say, what have I got with these people? How can I help them to be effective and impact work? Things get better, because now you've got the strength of everybody's abilities. And a lot of narrow-minded leaders try to just be the perfect human and cover everything and tell everyone what to do. But it's really narrow-minded. They're really great people who get amazing results, learn how to help people grow and become exactly as they were designed. And everyone's designed differently, so you have to learn to be agile with that, I think.
Right, sir. And I'll just take a moment to appreciate my boss here, as whatever you mentioned right now, he is truly a leader who recognizes these, little qualities in people, and he recognizes each and every person's strength and allows that person that room to grow, which I don't see in many organizations. I have my friends working with big corporates and earning good money, but they're not happy. They say they're just doing the job. I'm not happy. That's what they tell me. And
there's also, I've spent a lot of friends in Silicon Valley and various companies, and they often will go overboard trying to make people happy, but won't think about their health or growing them. So that's something that's often missed, is that people, just getting people to do what they're good at, and squeezing the juice out of them, which, they have no personal life. It's a really bad thing.
Right.
It's getting people to do what they love, and also pushing people uncomfortably into things that they might not choose to grow. So I always think of it in food groups. Everyone has the food they like. If you would just give me ice cream all day, that'd be great. Well, that's not healthy. So there are other foods that people have to have. And so I always think of when I was growing up and you got broccoli, I'd be like, okay, I don't want broccoli. But my mother would say, you don't eat your broccoli. You're not whatever. You're going to sit and look at it, or whatever my mother said. But everyone has that. Everyone has a broccoli they have to learn to eat, because it's important for you to do more and to be stretched a little bit, and it will be healthy for you. And then there are things you're allergic to, and that's what people miss. Now they're trying to force feed food onto people that having them do work that is just never going to work. And what they do is they say that person is a failure. I used to think that way. I used to say, oh, look at them, like failure is a style. Like what kind of human are they? Oh, they're a failing human. It isn't how it works. Everyone has something that they're really tuned in to do. And it's a function but if you put them in the wrong place, sure, they look like a failing human, but that's actually a failing manager who gets that wrong. And so I think early in the Varco culture, they would teach that you are 100% responsible for your people. Mm-hmm. And you'd be like, no, because some of them are bad people. And you have to learn they're not. So you have to find their right home. And it might not be your company. And it might not. I've often found people in the wrong type of job where it's very structural, but they're not very structural people. And so you go, can't you just be more structural? And then you find that they're more creative. You put them in a creative role where their creativity is really important and they get energized and they do great work over there. Same time, there are people over doing, more agile work, and they just need something that is more structured. And the best is combining both with people, is getting that mix to work socially, because they all think the others are really bad, So it's really a lot of good, healthy family life, looking at a good mix of different types of people. If you look at children, they're all different. They're in the same family, but they're different. So you have to adapt and make it work for everybody, so everyone grows. So I think family ideas compared to corporate ideas are better. Mm-hmm. In terms that, if you think in terms of family, if you think in terms of corporations, you don't see babies with a corporate style, not a mm-hmm. human thing. Humans don't naturally fall into being corporate. They have to work it up, and they have to pretend a lot to be corporate, and that's not really good for business. Structure is good. Like in a body, skeletons are good. But seeing a skeleton alone is scary. You need the whole thing together, and I think that's how it works. If you can think in more natural terms, it's much better for understanding life and business.
Right, sir. And you also made a very important point in your in the last interview that we had with you, that all the life skills and all the professional skills that we all own that actually have their roots in our family. Yeah. And that was a beautiful thing, and that's how it is. That's how it is.
It can be good and it can be bad.
Yes, yes.
It's funny. The horrible thing we're going through right now is people are getting laid off. Mm-hmm. And it's really sad. But this is one of those. Everything kind of ties into early experience in our life, and so in our minds we have lies that we believe about ourselves, that we speak to ourselves, and these all root in experiences we've had. Well, I was fired when I was probably 23, 24. Had a 6-month-old child. And it had just changed countries. My wife's from California. We moved to Scotland. And then for me, it was devastating. But I know the feeling, and I understand that people who go through getting let go, you'd think you could just back off and say, well, okay, they can't afford to employ me right now. But people don't do that. They immediately go to really deep personal pain, where if I've been rejected or if whatever I've gone through, multiple things could have happened in your life. But suddenly all of that comes to the surface, and this well of emotion that people feel, it's an awful feeling. And so pushing them through it is really unpleasant. But it's really telling you that the source is always in ourselves. The things that we react to happened, usually in our family. So not always good. Mm-hmm. There's good and bad in a family world. There's imperfection, which is just life. There's always imperfection. There's always some dysfunction. So everyone thinks there should be none, which is a corporate behavior, pretending that we're all okay. We're all not okay. We all have different experiences. And so this is one of the worst, but it's also a teaching moment to go, we all, when getting told, it's you didn't make the cut, and all this other stuff comes upon us, and we have these emotions that are so hard to deal with. Well, they were always there. Those emotions were there. Everyone has things to deal with. Everyone does not want to deal with those things. So we do other things. We get into other addictions. We get into work addiction, which is my addiction of choice. Some it's alcohol, some it's drugs, some it's other things. But but everyone has something that they do to try and not deal with things. And so that's really what this situation is doing, is pushing people into their most private lives at home, and having them. People are arguing. I've seen all sorts of unfortunate comments on Facebook about the difficult things that happen when you're in close quarters with people. I mean, I've been married over 30 years, so we love it. But 10 years ago it wouldn't have been as much fun, or 20 years ago would definitely not have been as much fun, because marriage is like that. It's a progression of commitment where you eventually are forced to work out things in your life that otherwise you would just go on thinking you're great all the time, or you're horrible. The two things people think in their heads, that they're great to survive, and inside being afraid that someone finds out they're not great. So it's a lot of psychology, really, I think. But I think human beings are like that we have very complex minds, and if we do the work of what's at home, if we do the work with our personality and with all the things that have affected us, good and bad, we will be happier. A lot more balance comes into our life when we work through these things, and even the hard things are here to help, force us through learning. It's not. I often think people think this idea of failing is that human style of failing that doesn't exist. It's because you're using the word fail. It is learning. Everything that doesn't happen for you or the way you want it. I recently, maybe 3 years ago, something happened at work, and my boss told me I didn't get a job that I really wanted. I'd done a lot of work to get it. Thought I should get it. In fact, he said, who else? If you didn't get this, who could have this job in the company? I said, no one, because I really believe no one. And at the end of it all, I took a day off because it was an intense interview process. And he was really worried that I didn't come into work. And so he called me and said, are you okay? I said, oh, it's just information. It's new information, but it's information about what you think about me and maybe what is true about me. And it's really the first time in my career I just saw it as information instead of an emotional, tie to something that says who I am or what I am. So I think that's a journey that we all have to go on, no matter where we are. It's just keep wanting information, good and bad, about ourselves. I think we are often our worst critics, and we're also our worst supporters. Like we like all the things that we shouldn't, and we don't want to hear the negative, but at the same time, personally, we don't want to hear it because we believe it deeply. Human beings are complex, and
Yes.
I think it's just good to think of taking everyone on a journey of growth. And if you think in terms of growth, good times or bad times, you'll come out stronger.
Right. And I think it's really important to be empathetic to each other, and not just in these times, but even in general. We take so much for granted if we go by our daily lives and examples. There's a lot that we take for granted, actually.
Well, and that's happening now. I mean, I'm trying to push my team. We have a call in on Monday morning, and we do some fun things. I've got two teams now. So I had the R&D guys come into our Monday morning call, and they were like, "That was crazy." Because we have the song of the week, and we have all these things that are just trying to make it fun, but trying to pick us up on a Monday morning. But I always ask people to take care of themselves, try and go for a walk, try and be aware on the walk, of the life around you, the things around you. I had a near-death experience, I don't know how long ago now, 14 years ago. But it was really important. It was massive blood clots. Should not have made it. But it changed my life. They actually left me and were just waiting for me to pass. And people came to say goodbye. And but that moment changed everything in my work world. I suddenly realized I'm alive. Every day is a free day. And every person you meet is a gift. And so it's that awareness of others and of the short and precious nature of life. Suddenly everything that you thought was important is not important. And that helps you. I think empathy, you're right. I think learning to be empathetic for others is not, or curious even, just to be interested. We get so wrapped up in ourselves. It's a journey. But it's not. I don't think it's natural. I think it's a broccoli thing for everybody, because our self concern and social media is not helping. It's wrapping us up in ourselves, comparing ourselves with others. It's not really helping that journey of empathy, but connecting to other people's pain, and understanding that everyone's got issues that they're working through. It certainly, as I moved up in my roles, I eventually learned to care more for the people who I was responsible for. Because I used to before I was at a lower level with them, go, oh, they've got this problem or that problem. When they came to work for me, I realized these are my children now. So I don't get to think they're bad people. I have to do the work and go, well, what makes you that way? Are you in the right job? People are unhappy generally should be finding something else, but sometimes they either want to prove that they can do something even if they're unhappy, or they just want to avoid change. And so our job is to encourage them to do the work.
Right, sir. And if we talk about the professional space here, what do you think the oil and gas companies should tell the community at this point of time? What should be their message for the global energy sector?
Well, I think there's different types. The European oil companies are talking more about the environment and making a difference with new energy. I'm in the same boat. I think it's the right answer. I think we've been working in this space quietly, and it's still fairly quiet. But we've been moving towards it, mostly because a friend of mine told us, he came and spoke at one of our leadership conferences internally, and he was from renewables and said, we desperately need your help. And so I think that's true. They've been very much government-led programs. And so the business side, it's not that strong. The motives are good motives, but not business motives as much. And so there's a lot of room for growth there. So I think that is something I would like to see more of in the energy world. I know for our company, we're investing there. Plus, generationally, everybody wants to see a transition in energy. And there's some ideas out there. They're okay. They're not there yet, I don't think. I think there's still new inventions to come up with. There's still challenges that we all have to solve. And I think the more oil and gas people, the way we solve problems, that's what's really needed in that space. And we've gone, in my era, we went, out to 10,000 feet of water. And I remember it began with a government project for Japan, I believe, that they wanted to mine, or they wanted to drill out at 10,000 feet. And we were doing the work to start the bidding for that drilling rig. Their project took about 5 to 7 years, I think, to complete, to have this drilling rig. But from the beginning of their project, it took us 2 years to be out and drilling at 10,000 feet, because we have a very agile and aggressive and highly technical and able, industry. So based on that's like a typical government type approach. It takes about 5 to 7 years, where we just went really fast into that space with tons of innovation. They need that help now. They need that same help. I still think oil and gas is going to be around, but most people understand that it's not. You can argue about what it's been doing to the planet, but you can't argue that no one's thinking it's a great idea to close the garage and turn the car on. It's a pollutant we're dealing with, and polluting is not a great idea. At the same time, I'm not ashamed that we changed the whole world, that we managed to make it advance and make our lives so much better. The core of the story is low cost energy.
Right.
But there are tons of people who haven't got access to that yet. And so there's a lot of work to help humans have better lives. And I think just understanding ourselves as the energy business, we're getting there. Mm-hmm. And I don't differentiate. We have the company saying from a few years ago that we've stuck with is we power the industry that powers the world. And I held a renewables brainstorming session in January in Holland, and everyone said we should say we power the industries that power the world. And I said, no, we always meant what it said. It's the same thing. It's energy.
Right.
So I think that we need to get comfortable with that.
Right, sir. And also, if we talk about startups, since we are in touch with a lot of startups in India, oil and gas startups, they are experiencing really difficult times at this moment. What is your message for them? Because some of the startups were just about to pick up and then things just changed dramatically. It's really hard on them.
It's really hard, but it's really important. I mean, it's a hard time. It takes you to an important point, right? So how much value was your product or idea? If it was maybe valuable, you're not going to make it. You need a new idea. If it is a really strong case, you need to stand out. You have to compete. You need to have a method to make money now. Some people have longer term thinking. It's going to take me 10 years. I'm a startup, but I need 10 years. So it's that new of a technology. You need another plan. That's not going to work. I mean, you might get someone to fund you. But it's better if you don't need someone to fund you. If you have a strong enough business case, you'll find methods to get money and where you're not giving up the control of your new business. But I think it's if you have a good enough invention and an application, you need to either pivot to find a way to make money now, some money to sustain yourself, or it needs to be strong enough that it can come to market fast, and then you aggressively go after that. And people are betting their lives on these things. The startups are not like other companies or individuals because they're putting everything, and they're putting their livelihood and all their hopes on a bet. And
Right.
And business, when you deal with products, you learn it is a bet. It's not a sure thing, because everyone who wrote a book who succeeded told you this is what you do. But the hundreds of books that don't get written are what you have to pay attention to. Is it's a rough road. But if you're made for startups, you'll do another one, and then you'll do another one, and you'll keep doing it. And if you succeed, you'll probably sell it, hopefully to a company like us. Because we buy a lot of companies from that. But people don't, some stay, but most are made to start things up. It's how they're made. So keep going. And I've done a lot of inventing in my life, and I know I always have invention ideas. I am not an engineer. I don't go and finish the design. I usually find someone who can do that. But I have lots of thoughts about how things could go. And the truth is, if you're that way, it doesn't end. You always have ideas. There's always new ideas. There's new things to break through. Push through. If it's not going to make it, give up on that idea. Find another one. If there's a derivative you can make that will deliver money, do that.
Those are some great advices, sir. And if we talking about the oil and gas industry, this whole COVID-19 situation is being recognized as a black swan event, or whatever name we give it. But the thing is, with oil prices being negative for the very first time, what do you think is the way forward? And what would you tell the fellow energy workers and managers in the business right now?
Well, the art of survival is really important. For some of it, it's too late. I mean, if you didn't have a plan that protected you, you might have to get on another horse, because managing your cost, being efficient, it's painful to do, but it's a really good muscle to have. And we had a decade where no one used that muscle. And so we've now had, a good 5-6 years where people are starting to really get used to how do we get efficient. And there's always more efficiency to be found. There's more better ways to do things. But I think being really focused on value, people often miss this. I mean, if you're going to innovate, I think I told my new team that if we're not adding a 30-40% improvement on something, stop what you're doing. Because in reality, if it's not 30-40% when in your base case, it might be 15 in reality. Because it's never perfect. We always have these perfect views, but if it's lower than that, then now it's not. You're going to develop a product or have an application that's not going to make it. But I think use your brain to question everything in these days, and think of new models and think of new ways of doing things. And I think all of our best inventions come out of this era. I think it was the late 90s when the deep water boom collapsed. Our CEO at the time was an inventor, and he said, "Look, I want everyone in 6 months to come up with a new technology, and we'll show at OTC the ones that are the strongest." All of those technologies became the backbone of the boom that we had, through the 2004 and beyond. As they evolved and became ready for market, they were foundational, and they were just 6 months of desperation. Like, we're going to have to find a way to do this. And back then, we had 1 or 2 engineers, and some people are used to 20 engineers in a project and can't imagine what if there was only a couple. But we actually have a little, I don't know what you call it. It's just a small group that we allow to work like a startup. Mm-hmm. So they're pretty starved for cash, mm-hmm. and they have to invent stuff, and they do amazing things with very little. And that's what you realize is sometimes you can learn these things with smaller teams and more agility and being really hungry and having a lot of vision for what's possible. So yeah, I think if you're still in through this and you make it in and you're in a company, you are the foundation of the company, and the future will be your story, everything that you go through. And if you're out of a company and you didn't, then you weren't in the core. So there's something to learn about that, because you have gifts and talents and strengths. And so now you have to question, do I belong in this industry? Do I belong in this role? Why was I not? And when it got down to the really tiny part, I wasn't in that core. I want to be in that core of whatever I do. So I'm going to go find that. So I think that's really the advice, is if you're in now, you're really in. Yeah, stick with the company, because it gets better from here. But if you're outside, then go, okay, this is an important point that when you write your book or tell your story when you're older, this is the moment to really understand where you're supposed to go.
I think situations like these really test who we are and where are we meant to be, as you mentioned. So, yes. And sir, also talking about cost savings, that is becoming a huge concern with the companies right now. Mm-hmm. And how should they go about this situation? As you said, as you talked about, a lot of innovations taking place during the crisis, even in the past.
Yeah, it's really hard because everyone thinks cut everything, which it is a method. We've come together with companies that spent their downturn just cutting. We once had a blend of companies where the people we were all peered with made half the money we made, and they were the ones who chose to just cost cut and really just got down to right on the edge of survival. But we never really did that. We didn't have that. Let's reduce our wages. Let's shrink down. We had let's innovate our way out. And so we were on the edge multiple times where our one thing we were betting on came through and paid out, and that's why we get the lucky ones who told the story. But there were plenty who didn't make it on that path. But I do think investing in technology, having a plan that said there's some things that are untouchable right now, and I'm so proud to be in a company that's doing that. I mean, we're in meetings about devastating cuts and how do we survive, and other meetings over here saying the technology, and it's going faster than ever now because people are so focused. You have to get it out to the field. So I think this week I've been in both meetings. People talking about survival, very sad, very heavy. People talking about it's going really fast now, and we're getting very agile. We're going to come to the field faster, and we can see how this will still sell. This is compelling enough that the technology is going to be unbeatable, and we're watching competition just fall away. And so if we can keep on that path, that's the secret, is to keep on that path and have planned to have spend wisely, saved wisely. It's the same as in our personal life. If you have some cash, we spent last year in the company cleaning up tons of bad debt, and now we're really glad because you're hearing everyone else doing that as well. The good companies have been cleaning up so that they can survive, and so we've been doing that, which means we're in a decent place for survival financially. We're not on the edge just trying to beg people to keep us alive. So I think that kind of long-term thinking. I think if you're going to stay in the industry and you're used to any industry with cycles, there's some simple rules. When times are really good, save for when times are really bad. Invest somehow in the things you don't want to invest in. So a ton of the technologies today we did in the when times were good, when we could afford it. And now we're investing for the next upturn. And so that's where our focus is how do we ride? So you might say, you're doing all this technology, who are you going to sell it to? No one's buying. Well, they will. And when they will, we'll be the first thing they'll be buying. And that's how we think. And so I think it's just a different philosophy, but it's also being very used to the cycles. And I think all these cycles can work like an engine, that they actually are going up and down. It's like a gear, it's just constantly going through a cycle. And so we just have to understand that there's different times we're going to have to engage differently and have different outputs.
And we can always look for the bright spots. We have to keep on identifying, right?
Yeah. I think the whole understanding how to do it, it's not the disposition of humans are to see the dark spots, is to see the big cloud. Some people I say I think of them as they always say, every silver lining has a cloud. Never seen a big cloud. But it is natural for people to be negative, and it's really hard for them to be positive. And so then the people who just do the false pretend it's all positive, that's not helpful either.
Yes.
But I think a mentality that understands. So like for now, we're in the middle of layoffs. It hurts. Like, weep with the people who are weeping. Don't just, sit back and go, I'm okay. But feel the pain. And then move on, but don't live in the pain. And that's really hard for people in their negative world to constantly live in something being negative. And so I think that is a gift to groups and to companies if you can learn how to be positive, how to see the opportunity in the darkness. And those are how great stories are always made, is when someone can see something, when everyone's head is down, you can lift them up and still be positive, still address the negative and drive towards the positive. And I think that is an amazing skill for people to have, that some worse than others, because we've been allowing ourselves to constantly think negatively. And so you have to actually work on that as a muscle, so that whatever times are good or bad, you're finding a way to think right. And that is a gift you can give people the rest of your life, is no matter what's going on, you're gonna give them some hope, and it's not an easy thing to hold on to, but if you can bring that to the table, that's really valuable.
That's truly a gift, sir. I agree with you totally on that. And since you are the Chief Marketing Officer of NOV, I don't think anybody else can answer this question better. What do you think about online presence of oil and gas companies today? Do you think it's really important to have that online brand presence?
No, that's a terrible idea. No, I think I'm getting known for being a believer in this, but yeah, I think use of the digital medium. We've seen it in this cycle, and as soon as we started turning to everyone being at home, I actually have a meme that I made myself for my team, and they unfortunately have to see it all the time. And it comes from the Saturday Night Live skit, where I guess it's the more cowbell skit. Where it's like, he just goes, "I have a fever," and I just need more cowbell. It's a really funny little skit if you haven't seen it. But so I took the same thing as I have a fever and the only prescription is more content. And I've been pushing that to everybody, because they're like, what should we do? And I'm like, we go now, we go fast, we go as much as we can, and we start putting content out, because people are at home and they're going to choose. Some of them have not really lived a digital life. They've not been in front of their screen as much. They've not interacted with social media as much, but they're going to now. Mm-hmm. And so let's be the first they see. Let's get them used to content that we can bring. Let's be valuable in the content we bring. And so, and let's be experimental. Now is the time where you can really mess it up. And people are like, it's okay, COVID-19, we know. So we've been trying all sorts of things. internally and then externally. So we started doing shows immediately inside the company. And once we'd done a few, I'm like, okay, let's put it over the wall. Let everyone see it. And I think next week's our big one. Would have been OTC week, and we're going to have we were going to actually have a podcast in the middle of the show, and we're going to do the same thing. I told them that's not over. You're still doing a podcast as if we're at the show. So I think we call it NOV Live International.
Yes, yes.
Spacing it out so everyone can view at different times. Because my interview is like 7 a.m. I'm like, there's something wrong here. 7 a.m. He said, yeah, no, there's of course we're trying to hit all different parts of the world. So I
have been following all your NOV live interviews.
Have you watching them?
Yes. I've been asking questions also, interacting with your team. Even the SPE live interview.
Yes, I did help that happen. So I pushed that very hard. So because we were doing it, I'm like, okay, you need to do it too. And they were ready. Their team was very ready. They have you'll see it in their professionalism, but they have some former television folks in there who just were like, yes, we've been dying to do this. Because I'm thinking it was going to be hard. But once I got past the wall of we've got to do this and we've got to do it now, allow me to experiment. And I got over to the SBE team. They're like, we already got a plan. And I was like, oh, okay. So they've been great. And I think we had a call. We have a bunch of podcasters. We get together just to brainstorm the younger generation for them. And we were in one, I don't know, it was probably last Tuesday. We were all talking. And one of the guys, like, it's just after the oil price went low, he goes, that was the time to go live right then.
Yes.
And the next day, one of those podcasters, ourselves and SPE, went live at the same time. But SPE did a news piece. It was exactly what we'd said the day before. Clearly, they were already working on it, and it's really impressive. They're just a great team. So it's good to have teams who were ready to go, and you just had to release them. And so I think my team is like that. Although I'm sure they're exhausted. Because we're doing so much content all the time.
Yes.
And next week is going to be a trying week for them because when we used to do Shrimp Boil Live, that was I think we did it as a 2-hour show a few years ago, and then we broke up pieces last year. But that's one day, so this was going to be all week. So
yes, I saw that starting from 5th May, I believe.
Yeah.
It'll
be fun.
Yes. We will definitely watch all those sessions. And so what is your message for the younger generation? They are very dejected and demotivated, especially the ones who were about to begin their career in the industry. And they don't know suddenly where to start from, what to do.
Be creative. I was just thinking this the other day that there's opportunity in here for them. Be hungry and willing to do what it takes, but get inside oil and gas. I mean, that's what happened to me. I ended up in a repair shop, and it was so good for my whole career. So understand that if you can get the understanding that you're not in control of this life, which once you get that when you know you're not in control, you're going to be all right. But people think they're in control, and it's all about you and what you make happen. But if you start being more observant and going, okay, I'm going to have opportunity here. I'm going to look for it. I'm going to get creative, and I'm going to take whatever comes my way. I'm going to go after it. And then good things happen. You'd be surprised. But even when it looks like it's not a good thing, it'll take you down a path. I had no desire or interest to be in oil and gas. And I found my family here. I found people who I connect with, and I loved what they did, and it was all very exciting. And it took me a number of years to accept that, I think I'm staying, because I did not think this is what I would do. So it wasn't what I studied. I had no reason for it. In fact, when I first moved to our headquarters in California, people said, you're not an engineer, you're never going to make it. They're all engineers. And when I turned up, they were more than engineers. They were very insightful people who saw things in me and called it out. And I was like, they're like, here's what you're really good at. And I was like, really? I'd never thought of myself that way. And it caused me to go on a career path. And so I think a lot of things are happening, and when you understand you're not controlling them all, and you can get at peace with that, there are things you have to do to drive and to move. and to be engaged, but you're not in control. And so finding some peace in the middle that things are going to be okay. I'm going to focus on what I can control, which is myself. And then the things around me, I can control my resume. I can control the people I know who are in my network. I always call it a what's in your pockets. I mean, what have you got? And so you empty your pockets out and you go, okay, well, I got these skills. I know these people and I'm connected to this person. So I'm going to be cheeky and ask for a job. I met a guy socially and he said, I told him my story of my thesis in college, which was all more social related to construction in London. And he just liked it. He liked me, and he had a problem which was cultural, and he understood that I'd studied cultures in a technical way and hired me. And I solved problems for him very quickly between cultures. And so that wasn't something I planned or meant to happen. But it's a network. It's being aware of what's around and being open and saying, okay, let me try something. Don't get caught in feeling like it's all not working. I am a problem. I chose the wrong subject. This is your time, because what happened for me and then was there was another cycle. Lots of people left, and it could have felt like, oh no, lots of people left. But if you're still in the company or you can get in the company, this is your company. I mean, the people I started with, we today are all over this company in NOV, and they all stayed and they all run different parts of the business. And it's really funny. You just go, we were all in a workshop once upon a time, and here we are across the world, So I love that. And none of us intended it, but we were opportunistic, and you should be. This is an opportunity, and if you look at it that way and you get your head in, what have I got? I'm going to work on that. It'll work out.
That's a very, very strong message. And especially I can totally relate with that, because if I talk about my organization, it's an oil and gas dedicated platform, digital platform, and everyone is an engineer except me. And I come from a literature background. So in the beginning, it was very difficult for me to understand I didn't even know what is an oil rig, how does it work, everything. But now I find it so fascinating. And I also follow your posts under the hashtag Rig Geeks. I don't understand everything, but I watch the videos and I try to understand how this technology made things simpler for everyone around. And that's what I find fascinating about this industry, that actually so much is around us is because of oil and gas.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, and I think for me, the Rig Geeks was just I'm sitting at home and rethinking. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not in the office. And I just went to my hard drive of photographs and went, look at this. Let's open that up and see if anyone knows this. And they're little rare things that, most people don't know what they are, because they're moments. And when we were in previous downturns, we invented tons of weird things that we tried and didn't work, or we tried and it did work and it led to something else. But it was really fun. Now that I posted some today, and it's because I got back to the office and I pulled out things people had given me when they left. Like one of the old owners of Varco, his son was leaving and he handed me some things, and I was looking through it today, and I won't say the date because it's one of the questions on Rig Geeks, but it was a really old piece from the company. I'm like, look at this picture. I'm going to take a picture and post it. But it's really fun. We have a great history, and we're making great history. So you can be a part of that. I think seeing the agility of our industry, there's nothing like it. I've seen tons of corporate worlds outside of ours, and they're not as much fun. So I think it's a very fun place to be with good people inside of it.
Yes. I am loving the part where I get to talk to people like you and understand why did you join the industry, what inspired you, what motivated you, what keeps you going. And it just amazes me. Everything about the people in this industry, it simply amazes me.
It is amazing.
Yes, sir. So I think we can take up a few questions from our team members now. So yes, the first is, Mr. Reid, how do you strike the right balance of making your team feel like family and increase their overall productivity?
It's the same thing. So it's funny. We because I think efficiency is at the top of my list. I have like simple rules, and one is efficiency. And maybe about 6 months ago, in one of the team meetings, I said, "What is the most efficient thing that we do?" And everyone was like, I said, "I'll tell you. Friday morning, someone in the team makes breakfast for everybody else. Sometimes they bring in family members, and we all eat together for an hour. So that's the most efficient thing that we do." And everyone was like, "Isn't that the least efficient thing we do?" I said, "Do you know how much time that saves us? Because when you don't know each other and you don't serve each other, you start to have questions about what are they like and what are they actually doing, and all this negativity builds and lack of connection. And so now you're talking to someone about someone. Now you're not going to see them to solve a problem. Now they're not people in your life." I said, when you have that connection, we will solve problems together. Well, you know what they're really good at? You know what they love doing? I'm going to bring it to them. And because you have that relationship, you'll do more. So it's the same thing. I think so for my leaders, managers, they spend most of their time working with me on how is someone doing? How are the team doing? And so their productivity is the result. Their happiness is the same thing. People who are happy are hyper productive. In fact, we have someone who's fairly new on the team, and we were talking in a call the other day, and I loved seeing her boss say, "Hey, I noticed that email came at 1:30 in the morning. Now that's really cool that you worked that long on it, but at the same time, let's make sure that's not a habit." Mm-hmm. Because it's actually when people are well balanced in their life, they are productive. When people work long hours, they are not productive. And they don't know it. They think they are. And usually when people are working long hours, it's because they're working on something that they're not very good at. And it makes them work harder and try and get it right because they usually don't get it right. Whereas there's someone sitting beside them who would do that without thinking very quickly. I was that person. I had a boss really early told me, "You're doing all these things over here. You're really bad at that," which unfortunately was the first thing he told me, which I thought, "Oh, no, I'm fired." And he said, "But there's the other thing you do. There's only 2 other people in the company can do that, and it's highly valuable." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So he said, "I want you to do more of that other stuff." And it was like he said, "Ice cream all day for you, everyone else broccoli."
Yes.
And I was so happy. I can't believe you're telling me not to do things I hate that I'm ashamed that I can't do, but everyone can do. And so it made me really comfortable with who I am and what I can do. And that's part of how family is productivity, is that it's the most productive thing. Our families who worked on farms, who got so productive, we could have art because someone had time who was an artist, because we overproduced, because the people who can produce on the farm do the work that they're supposed to do, so we can have music and art and things can start to happen and the industry starts to happen. Then they feed the farm next door and it does something else. Then we have big cities. Then it all happens because of that family unit learning to be productive. And I think it's the same thing in all of our work, is that people think they're being productive because they do lots of things that aren't productive but look productive. So if someone tells me to come to a 2-hour meeting, I'm like, meeting rhymes with beating for some reason. I haven't heard the song yet, but most meetings are horrible for me in the way I'm structured as a human. And I'm like, I have a goal for this meeting. Can it be an hour? How could we do it? Everyone, let's talk. Let's make it goals. When someone rambles, let's have a rule where we can stop them without hurting their feelings. When someone's wasting our time, let's find a way to move it off the table. And I think that that's where productivity can work. Everyone has a gift to bring. And I tell people for meetings, you can have me in there. Don't have me long. I will disrupt your meeting, and I don't mean to. I just hate that. So there was a time where they were doing long meetings just because it was me and they knew I would take it off track.
Right.
I'm taking it off track because I hate meetings. So have me come in for the bit I can add. If I need to know something, make it brief, and then let's be done with the meeting. Some people need that time, We're all wired differently, but if we can work for everyone, we can work out how people work and how that works well together. You really can get very effective productivity through family-like behavior. It's really hard. Times like now at my bosses, we measured the company, and one thing our whole company says is they call the company a family. Global family is one of our values. but the value came because we measured the company, and they all said that, not because we made up this idea and people repeat it. But when we do layoffs, he's always like, can we drop the global family, because it's not very family like to tell someone they don't have work and they can't, we can't sustain them. And I'm like, no, we're always going to have it because it hurts us, and that's family. This hurts. I mean, it's dark and horrible, and we wish we weren't doing it. And that's because we're connected and we care. We're now hurting people who we care about, and that's not pleasant, but that is family. Is that sometimes happens?
Yes, sir. That's right. But yes, again, as we have discussed, that these are really tough times, and some things are just not under our control. And as an organization, there's only so much you can do.
Yep.
What you talked about, working like a family, that is actually the most important thing. Because if we are not happy as employees, I don't think I will be able to contribute anything to my organization if I'm not mentally at peace and there. And
and families have dysfunction, and people. So groups, even though I describe my company well, there's imperfection all over it, And I think knowing there's imperfection, that's another family thing, is to know that it's not going to be perfect.
Yes.
My team, I drive for excellence. Yet, my favorite, the folks who've been around me long enough will say, we'll leave a meeting and I'll say, that's okay, let's go with that. And afterwards they'll be like, you don't like it? And I'm like, no, I don't like it. But I can't afford to keep talking about it. This is good enough. And I hate that it's good enough, but it's good enough. And the fact that they know that I've always got a standard above where we are, that I'm unhappy with. Like I'm almost eternally unhappy. I have to deal with that because there's always something better. But the people who like working on the team love that. Like there's always going to be another thing that we're striving for. There's a better thing we can do and we can improve. And some people can't cope with that conversation, but it's the balance of saying, okay, we're going to allow people to fail, but we're going to control that as best as we can. So we're going to put them in spaces where it's not a big deal that they fail. And so I think you can work on your quality and your excellence without crushing people and without not letting people have opportunities. So you just have to do it in a controlled way.
Right, sir. So I'll take the next question. Do you think automation in the oil and gas industry would have saved us a lot of dollars in times like these?
Well, I've worked in that space a lot. So the theory always was less people needed to do the work and faster work. And it didn't deliver. We did mechanized systems, big, heavy work. So we're a bit slower, and we have higher paid people, about the same amount of people looking after the equipment. So it didn't deliver there. I think we're about to really break into it. The efficiencies we've done, I have patents in this stuff, but we have done closed loop sensing systems that can run the machinery on the surface. Someone still watches it, but we've proven that can be faster and much more efficient. Today, the hard part is today we have people who make money reading the signs of what comes out of the well, and they're experts and they feel it. But that's like having someone who's expert at driving in the dark. That's great. You know the road and you can feel the road and you know when things are happening. But how about we turn on the lights? Mm-hmm. And then everyone can drive in the dark. So I think there's room for a lot more automation. And I think I'm seeing a few companies now, all companies saying, okay, how do we get people off rigs? Well, in my world, I started with seeing iron roughnecks. And when I began, real human roughnecks all had fingers missing. And I'm thinking, this is a no-brainer. Like, surely a robot should do this. It's so dangerous. Well, rigs can blow up. Surely we should have no people on them. It's the right thing to do in the long run. But it's taken us a while to get there. We've been a bit slow, and it's a complex application. It's very dirty. We have to work a lot of sensors. It's not as simple as they do robots here, we can do robots here. But I think there's a lot of room in there that the mechanized things can be more robotic, that the that the systems can start using AI, that the systems can learn from each other. I think it's going to be a smaller business. I think the whole saying, "Oh no, there will be jobs gone." Yeah, there are probably too many jobs for the oil that we produce, and so it'll probably be smaller. It'll still be a great business. It'll be a decent size, and there'll be opportunity in those areas. And I think there's a lot still to do. And I am personally very excited about what we can do with connected data systems, and the automation that's coming ahead is going to be a lot more fun. It's definitely been clunky up until now. And I've been involved in designing those drilling rigs with the big machines on them. So it's been ever since in fact, when we hit the upturn was when I stopped designing. I stopped getting involved in the design of drilling rigs because we didn't have time. We just had to make as much as we could because the times were, make hay while the sun is shining. And so now we're back in, okay, we can invent a bit and think a bit. And I think the machines need to shrink down. I think the design of things has to change and data has to become much more open and shared between systems. And those who crack that nut will do very well.
Right, sir. Sir, even in the last interview, we talked about collaboration. How important do you think collaboration is at this particular time?
I actually think generationally it's getting better. I think everyone had a protective mentality for their jobs and for their companies. And we're tended to think collaboration is always bad. And I think that's going to change too. I think the need for collaboration is needed for speed. If we're going to do things faster and learn faster, we're going to have to learn how to collaborate. And it's a skill. Just as being defensive is a skill and being collaborative is a skill. And so some people will choose a defensive position with their business. But those who have gone really fast with particularly digital technologies have been more collaborative. So it doesn't mean you give up everything. It means the business model has to change. You have to understand where you're going to make money and collaborate so that you can be a part of the story instead of the part that never got to come along because you were trying to resist change.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for these valuable insights, sir. And also thank you so much for sharing your personal journey with us, because that is where I see a lot of strength, a lot of hope, courage, and inspiration. And I'm sure our audience will also take those points home. And you have given us a lot to think about and reflect upon in these difficult times. And I just wish, from our work family to yours, I wish you all luck. And yes, these are hard times, but we all will get through. That's how we see it. Thank you so much again, sir. It was lovely speaking with you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.